Welcome, everyone, to another episode of The Everyday Trader. It's good to be back. I've missed the last couple. We were in, where were we at? Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas. So it was good. It's good to be back with you. I was gone the week before that as well, and I know Eric did one. So it's always a pleasure to give you our thoughts on the market. So we have a fun topic today, and it's something that we've been talking about here at the Everyday Trader for a little while. I would say maybe a month or so, about a potential risk that's on the horizon for the market, and particularly for the economy. And it's interesting, it's finally starting to get some traction in some of the financial media. Actually, as I was driving to the office today, finally heard someone on CNBC talking about this topic. So this topic, of course, is student debt, and the fact that we have been in moratorium, or whatever the right word is, we haven't had to pay back student loan debts for those individuals who have them right now as a country, as an economy. That is coming to an end at the end of August. In some cases, that debt is going to be a pretty sizable amount of money, and for sure going to be a drag on the economy. So Eric did a fantastic presentation when we were in Austin. And so we kind of wanted to do a little episode about that, about what this risk exposes to the economy, what it could do to maybe some individual sectors of the market, and what it entails. So Eric, I'm going to give you the wheel. Jesus, give me the wheel. Or no, is that how it goes? Jesus, take the wheel. Eric, take the wheel.
Take the wheel. All right. Yeah. So, hey, I remember the first, we've heard about this for a while. I mean, we all know there's a student debt issue that's been talked about quite a bit, and it's a interesting topic and a little polarizing, and people get somewhat emotional about it. You and I were in Sarasota at a conference hanging out and having a wonderful heated discussion among economists and people who are experts in the financial space. Love those really thoughtful discussions. And you and I both remember that Michael Drury, who's chief economist for McVane, somebody you've known for a long time, a little longer than I have, but I've had the pleasure of spending time with Michael, and we're lucky that we get to hang out with some of these people, literally some of the smartest people in the space in this area. And one of the things about Michael Drury is that he's not encumbered by groupthink. In fact, he's one of the people that tends to say things first. And this is a case where he definitely brought this to the point of, we were discussing, and this was 3-4 months ago, and we were talking about recession, and is there going to be a recession? And we're sitting there with Federal Reserve Governor too, as well, and some other people that you've probably all seen on CNBC or Bloomberg or read their stuff. Is there going to be a recession in 2024 or 2023? Drury said no, but there will be in 2024. It's like, well, are you just shooting from the hip, or you have a reason? And he brought up student loan debt as being something that's going to be quite significant. And since then, we're starting to see more and more of it. You mentioned you saw on the news today, or heard on the radio, that somebody bringing up the concept or the topic of student debt. And so I decided to do some research and take a look at some reports to try and put the stuff into a bread basket. And I've read stuff from JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, but it was a UBS piece that was out a couple of weeks ago that really did a thorough, did some research looking in, and they did some surveys of actual debt holders, and they had a pretty sizable sample and came up with some pretty interesting conclusions that I want to share with our community here. And so let me pull up this presentation and walk through it. So just to help put things in a breadbasket, like how big is the student loan issue? And I pulled some of these data from different sources. So I'm close to the numbers, but there's a total outstanding debt, and this is both public and private debt of $1.8 trillion dollars. And there are 44 million borrowers. It's 43.7 or something like that, but 44 million, that's 13% of the United States population have student debt. And as Greg mentioned, there's been a holiday. So there's been a moratorium on the need to pay. And so because of COVID, everybody had a grace period for the past few years. And they've been putting off whether or not they should they keep saying we're going to go back to paying, and then there's always an extension. And part of this most recent negotiation for the debt ceiling was to finally end the moratorium and to have people start paying back their student debt. So the average balance is 37,393 of these 44 million people. That's the average balance, which works out to be a monthly payment of 503. Now, this number, I've seen three different numbers. The lowest I've actually seen is 250. I've seen a number that's bigger than 503. This is the most credible one, I think, and it's in the ballpark. Whether it's 250 or 500, it's still a pretty significant amount of money. And at the end of August, these loan payments need to resume.
I think that's especially true. Let me throw a couple of validation behind that. I think that the higher number is probably more likely, particularly since I know not all of these student loans themselves are on fixed interest rates. I know a lot of them are a variable rate that, of course, since they took the student loans out and paid tuition and books and housing and all the things that you do to pay for it, interest rates have gone up since then, as we all know, on everything. And so my guess is 503 is probably a pretty accurate, if not maybe even a low number.
Yeah, you're right. You're probably right, because there are some changes that have happened with regards to the terms. Obviously, one of the big concerns is that some people are probably haven't fully recovered from COVID or whatever, and it'll be a shock to the system. So there have been some new repayment terms that have been made available, and there's four different tiers of these. One of the interesting ones is you'll pay a certain percentage of your salary based on whatever your income is, and as long as you're consistent with paying that, whatever that percentage is of your salary, after 10 years, it's expunged. So there's these different tiers of programs that are available. This is one of the things that's sad about student loan is you can't file for bankruptcy to get rid of it. So it's going to be with you forever. And looking at this graph down on the bottom, I thought this was interesting. This is to put some color on it. The age group of people. So 20 people in their 20s have an average of 21,700. And then you see the 30s and the 40s, which is probably what you'd expect. They're running around 40,000 in student debt. And then as the ages, and this is what gets me, is we've got people in their 90s that have 21,000 in student debt. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but it's pretty shocking to me how that we still have people I can't imagine being 90 and still having 21,000 in student debt hanging over my head. So maybe they might be financing grandkids or something.
That's what I'm like thinking. It's like, I can't imagine that's still leftover debt from their college days. My guess is it's probably borrowing money to help grandkids go to school.
Yeah, interesting. But anyways, that puts some color on it. And then so diving down, and these are average loans. The UBS report did a lot of diving into looking at advanced degrees and types of degrees and who has more than others. And obviously, advanced degrees and PhD or doctor's med school tend to have higher debt. And there's some interesting data that's in there, which I love plowing through the data. But I really wanted to sort of explore more about who is the average person that has student debt. And UBS does a pretty good job of determining who this person is. And it's mostly female. Average age is 37.4. Most likely they're single versus married. And their average salary, this is of all people surveyed, the average salary is slightly lower. These are the people that have, this is the average salary of people who have student debt versus, so slightly lower, but not too far away from the average. I thought that was interesting because I thought, you got a college degree, you would hope that your salary on average is higher, but it's actually not. Their salaries, right there in the average, a little bit on the low side. Where do they live? The vast majority of them rent. And these data are available. I'm just summarizing it here because it gets a little wonky if I went through and presented all these charts. And there's a significant portion who still live with their parents. And I'm thinking 37 years old, with a whole bunch of debt, not enough. Yeah, living at home, not married. Interesting. So they don't own.
Who I think of, it was you remember the movie Wedding Crashers?
The Wedding Crashers. Oh, such a great movie.
Had Will Ferrell, who lived in the basement and yelled at his mom Mom, enough.
You know what I watched in the plane flying back from Austin?
What's that?
Old School.
Nice.
I was laughing out loud. That show is hilarious. Frank, what are you doing? We're streaking to the quad.
I watched.
They're coming.
I watched Thor: Love and Thunder.
Thor: Love and Thunder.
Have you seen the
two?
It was okay. I was disappointed.
By the way, this image of this woman over here, this is from Midjourney. So Midjourney does AI generated. And what I did was I copied and pasted, the description of who this person was and asked Midjourney to give me a photorealistic. And this is an AI generated image. And if you look at some of the details, you got the purse kind of hanging in here. But this is an AI generated image of this person. When I typed in single 37 salary, all this description, and this is the image. It came up with a few different ones, but I thought this was interesting. Yeah, anyways, kind of interesting how she got her purse like somehow surgically inserted through her hip. AI. Okay, but so the ones who do own, what's interesting is the majority of them have home equity loans. So not only do they have a first mortgage, they have a second mortgage as well. Most of the people who own homes. And as far as when asked the question, do you have a rainy day fund? And on average, they said no. So most people don't have a sufficient rainy day fund. And they tend to make minimum payments on their credit card balances or partial. They don't pay off. And this might not be a surprise. Well, the way this conversation is going, these people, this woman, this 37-year-old woman who lives with her mom, lives with her parents, tends to have a higher credit card balance than on average. And then when we dove into looking at what sort of things they like to spend money on, they are more attuned to fashion. That's one of their top things that this person, and I don't know if any of this is a surprise, but it feels pretty normal and pretty natural to me. And I'm trying to empathize with this person who, has this situation. I mean, they're not necessarily rich and they've got, significant bills and debts and obligations and likes and wants and all these other things. And I'm thinking this person 2 years ago, 3 years ago, got to notice that, hey, you don't have to pay $500 anymore. So you've got an extra $500 a month. And I don't know, it's your paycheck tends to be, to me, I think of like a goldfish. The bigger the tank it is, the more the goldfish grows. And when you make more money, if you're not prudent, it's easy to spend that money on things like clothes and going out or doing these other things. And that money has found a place to go. I think, and I think I'm right. I think this person is going to have a challenge when we say, okay, now you got to come up with an extra $503 a month. And I think maybe the first month's going to be okay. And the second month, maybe a little harder. So September, October, now comes November, December, and it's time to go Christmas shopping. And this person is probably feeling the pinch. And I can't see how this isn't going to play out in the economy. Your thoughts on any of this? I'm going to go into more about the sort of philosophy and apparel stuff on their tastes, and then dive into those brands here in a second. But any thoughts before I go to the next ones?
Well, I think um, it's definitely going to impact their ability to spend. Having to come up with this money, whether it's $300 a month or $500 a month, it's going to impact their ability to spend, even if it's nothing else than having them change where they're shopping, because a $500 a month payment on a $65,000 a year salary, that's a big percentage of your income that you're used to spending on something discretionary at this point, or saving or investing, that you now have to use to pay off debt. And one of the, topic that is interesting, I'm pretty sure the Supreme Court is hearing this tomorrow. You know, there were the Biden administration, I know, canceled $10,000 of student loan debt for a certain income level that is estimating about a third of these borrowers, if it gets approved, if the Supreme Court doesn't overturn it and actually lets it go through, about a third of these will have about $10,000 of that debt forgiven. Again, based on income level, whether they use Pell Grants or not. I know there's a lot of details in that, but I think the reason I wanted to bring that up is I know a lot of people are thinking about this student loan thing and just saying, oh, well, President Biden just forgave them all. No, that it's actually a pretty small amount of the actual borrowers who qualify for it. And that's even if it allows it to happen. And again, it's only $10,000 of the average balance of 37,000.
Yeah, that's why I came back to this slide. So yeah, I mean, just knocking 10,000 off certainly is going to help and maybe make some of the payments go down. The other thing I was thinking is if you take this 503 multiplied times 44,000, it's not an insignificant amount of money. And it works out to be about 0.8% of GDP. And I'm not saying that, that's so we should expect that we're probably going to see some measurable impact in GDP. And I don't have the data to support it here, but going back to where we heard this from, the discussion was from Michael Drury, who was citing a paper of the entitlement spending with Social Security, which is a number that's about the same number of people who get, I think it's 67 million people receive Social Security. And there was an increase of $125, which had a measurable impact, a positive impact on GDP. So if we gave 67 million people an extra $125 a month, that affected GDP. What happens if we give about that number, about 2/3 of that in terms of number of people, 44 million people, and now the other direction, we take away $500 from them? It has to be something we're going to see impact GDP. So just sort of adding a little bit more color to who this person is when surveyed, and there was a whole bunch of different questions, and one of them was, are you a live for today person? And by and large, most of them agree with the concept. My philosophy is spending is live for today because tomorrow's uncertain. And the brown lines are the people with student loans. The light blue, the tan lines are your average people. And so your average person does not agree with, spend money now because, the future's uncertain. These people tend to be more what the kids are calling today YOLO. You only live once, or live for today. So they tend to be more impulsive in spending. And I mentioned earlier that their preference in terms of where they want to spend money and where they like to spend, it's in entertainment, it's in dining, it's vacations, it's apparel. However, there's one of the questions that was asked in the survey when getting around to the question about how much money do you have for a rainy day fund, and how would you likely respond? Would you defer spending? And they agreed that they would defer spending in apparel and also in entertainment and vacations. So those are the things that they responded, saying that they would likely put off. The other thing this survey did was asked, what specific brands do you shop at? Number one is Nike. And if you look at student loan holders, way out in front of any other brand, Nike is the brand that they tend to spend money on. And these other names are also in here, fairly popular fashion brands, Under Armour and Crocs and Canadian Goose and AEO. Uh, that's Victoria's Secret company, right? And JWN is Nordstrom's.
Yeah.
Gap, Foot Locker, Crocs shoes. I'm amazed at how has Crocs been able to stay in business. They make
Rubber shoes.
people love them.
I, I have a pair of Crocs that I bought like 20 years ago. They're still in great shape. I mean, I don't wear them that often. Maybe that's the problem, but I
I
don't
see
need a
people
second.
wearing them all the time. The young kids today. I just yeah, I guess whatever. But we look at these other lines here, they're kind of low in terms of the what they've purchased in the past 6 months. The point that I'm making here is that I'm not sure. I like Nike. Nike's a great company. I think they're, pretty good fundamentals and they're going to be around. They're going to be survivors. But in terms of thinking about how to play this in my portfolio, I'm certainly going to be keeping an eye on them third quarter, fourth quarter, and it might not happen until next year. But I'm guessing this might be something that's below the radar. And I bolded Nike because my intention is to consider trading them bearishly the latter half of this year, first half of next year. I think that's one of the best ideas that comes out of this sort of situation here with the student debt.
I'm going to have to agree with that. I think that, as much as I like Nike and I think their brand appeal is as good as any brand globally. It's just they're a dominant player. That's where kids shop, and that's where these people, if they're going to cut spending in apparel, that they're going to feel it. Nike's going to feel it. Not to mention the potential that spillover that it could have if this actually does have a broader economic impact. It does push us into recession. So then it's other people start slowing down spending on apparel as well. I've got a couple of other ideas, and I don't want to jump forward too far, but some other ideas of companies that may struggle if this comes to, I should say when this comes to fruition, right? It's going to happen.
Well, I mean, this is, I don't have a crystal ball.
It may not push us into recession, but
this is going to happen. There's no question this is going to happen. What's the impact going to be? I don't know that it's fully priced in yet. And where would it get priced in? And so this is start paying attention to analysts and listening to them and watch these equities that might take it on the chin. And the good news is, there might be an opportunity to get in. And if you're willing to hold it for a year or more, wait for the dip and maybe use a collar trade or something, it could be an opportunity for you because these are great companies. They're going to be around for a while and they'll get through this. But what's going to happen is you'll start seeing building of inventory. You hear talk about inventory, growing inventory. And then what's going to happen is they're going to have to discount to get rid of that inventory. And then it hits them in the margins. And so then you see PEs get crazy. And and then the stock probably taking a dive based on fundamentals. What were your other ideas?
Well, there's a couple of different spaces. So I think one of them that I think is pretty unique to, I would say, the millennial generation. I'm not saying that only millennials use this service, but it's one that I know, at least in the town where I live, and again, I live in a college town, so maybe it's more active, but DoorDash is something that I can see people saying, hey, I can't spend that 30% extra to have my food delivered to me. Obviously DoorDash was a huge COVID play and there was some nervousness about going out to eat. And so they had huge growth. Their stock shot up during COVID. I think that's someplace if people are tightening budgets, DoorDash is one of those ones I think, okay, I'll actually drive and get my, pick up my pizza myself or my Chinese food, whatever I'm ordering for the night. I think DoorDash could struggle. I think we've seen a lot of these kids. In fact, I noticed it on your slide this time. It wasn't the first or the second, but the third one was travel that they would be willing to cut back on and vacation. We've seen a lot of people, again, because on the back end of COVID, the terms I know that got thrown out around at Summit a lot with Jeff there, being a former American Airlines pilot, as we referred to it as revenge travel that's been going on, making up for the travel we missed from COVID. And that may suffer some travel. And so companies like Delta Airlines, the airlines maybe have had a nice run. They've got a lot of debt that they're in trouble with. I think companies like Airbnb that may be not only having issues with the real estate market struggling right now and higher interest rates, but now the potential lessening of demand if people are traveling less. So I think those are a couple interesting names. One guy that he was interviewed last week. I don't remember where. It may have just been a YouTube channel. It may have been on Bloomberg. Dan Niles is his name, and he talked about Disney and Netflix and Hulu specifically, and how a lot of people have subscriptions to all three. And they may change the behavior now of, well, if I'm tightening my budget, maybe I can't subscribe to all three at the same time. I just do one at a time. So
Was it you that was saying that they might, do the binge rotate? So
yeah, you bounce. You're on one for a couple of months and you binge everything on Netflix, and then you cancel and move to Disney, and then you're on Disney for a couple months and you binge everything and catch up, and then cancel and then move to Hulu. And I think there's a potential that could happen. Again, you just have to start to think through the mindset of what would I do? What would a typical consumer do if I were in this scenario where my discretionary income is getting cut by $500 a month? Where am I going to tighten my belt? And your most obvious answers are probably the right ones in the companies that are going to struggle.
I happen to think that there will be some areas that don't do as poorly, or maybe even do better. And I do think, streaming might be, because there'll be some of this low end luxury stuff. And I remember, in 2007 and 2008, through the recession, that surprisingly some restaurant stocks were doing better. And the narrative for that is that, people aren't going to go on vacations and they're not going to be able to buy, new luxury items, but they still, can go afford, going out to dinner for $60 or $100 or whatever it is. So there's, they're not going to completely sacrifice everything, and that they're surprisingly, and the other sector that did well, alcohol sales during a recession, people will, so maybe an opportunity to get into bud if they can get past the sentiment. By the way, those sentiment things, I think probably an opportunity for Budweiser.
Sorry, I was going to say, and I think some of those sectors that maybe are the play down, the move down in quality, people not shopping at Nordstrom anymore. They're going to actually shop at Walmart now to get there. That's a really big jump, Nordstrom to Walmart. But again, similar type of thing. Maybe they're not shopping at Trader Joe's for their groceries. They're shopping at Walmart to try to save some money. So it could be, I think Walmart actually could be a beneficiary of that. I think Dollar Tree is another one that maybe you could see a beneficiary of people trying to save money and shopping at places like Dollar Tree and Dollar General.
Awesome. This was fun. I hope that people got something out of it. We're sharing ideas here, what we're seeing and things to keep an eye on. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. I don't think we're going to see a recession I think we're not going to see a recession in 2023. I think that's a pretty safe bet. Maybe in 2024, so we'll have to monitor this and see how it plays out.
Okay, well, it's good to see you in person last week in Texas, even though it was really hot. I'm glad to be back in the mountains where it's cooled down a little.
Where should we go next?
I don't know. I like the West Coast.
How far west? Aloha West?
Maybe in the middle of the ocean. We'll do some pricing, but
that's pretty far west.
I like Dana Point too. I like Southern Cal. So we'll do some pricing. We'll let everybody know. For those of you who are new to us, don't forget, like and subscribe. Thanks for joining us today. Have a happy 4th of July as well. I don't think we'll do another one before that. Maybe we will. We actually might do one on Monday. We're thinking about it.
Yeah.
Maybe we can all wear red, white, and blue.
Thanks for the reminder. Everybody have a good weekend. We'll
Thanks, everybody. See you later.
Bye.